location scouting, and the potential surprise benefits this week in the field. Hi everyone, my name is Scott Davenport and welcome to In the Field, and I can't believe it's the end of January 2016 already. The year seems to be flying by. So this week's episode is kind of a follow-on from last week. Last week I had talked about following up. You've taken some scouting shots and you found something interesting, and get out there when the conditions are what you want them to be, so you can make that shot you envisioned. And this week is the opposite end of that. Once you've finished with your planned shoot, taking the time to do a little scouting and taking a little extra time when you're doing your scouting shots, because you might end up being pleasantly surprised with what you come away with. So that's exactly what I did after shooting out in the Anza Borrego Desert. I did a little more scouting in a couple of other areas of that area I hadn't explored before. Now, I didn't grab a ton of footage because this wasn't really part of my plan to shoot. I got a little bit, and also I can show you where I was on the map, so let's have a look. Here's the Anza Borrego Desert area, and I was shooting out toward the edge of this road here. It's an overlook, looking over the Badlands, so somewhere in this area. And then, navigating and weaving my way back home through this whole area here. And just pulled over at a variety of spots. I saw some interesting trees along the road here. I stopped and took shots of those. And then actually in this area back here is an old dry lake bed. So, worked my way all the way through some dirt roads into this area and took some other scouting shots here as well. And I got a little bit of footage from this dry lake, so let's take a look. I'm standing at the base of Clark Dry Lake in Anza Borrego Desert. I stopped here on my way back from a shoot this morning. The sun is just starting to break through some of the clouds here now, which is nice because it is cold. It is 0 degrees C here, so my fingers are getting a little numb. But I am spending a bit of time scouting around, walking around this dry lake bed. It's kind of like the cousin to the racetrack playa in Death Valley. Certainly not as grand, not as large. It's also much easier to get to Clark Dry Lake than it is to get to the racetrack. But there are some interesting cracks and patterns in the ground itself. There are a few interesting foreground subjects. So I'm going to mill around here a little bit, get some ideas, and maybe come back here for another shoot at a different time of day or night. Now, even though the sunlight wasn't dramatic and nice and golden by the time I was doing my scouting, I still took the time to work the scene. And set up the tripod. I thought about composition. I thought about the angle that I was shooting at. All of those things you would normally do on your prim and proper shoot. And I'm glad that I did, because I ended up coming away with several images that it's like, yes, I want to get back to this spot. But also, I like what I have here, and I'm actually going to go process some of them. And I don't normally do that with test shots. They are really just to feed the ideas of where I want to go for golden hour. But in this case, I had a couple that I really liked, and so went the extra mile and did the processing on them. And in their own right, I like them, even though they were not planned. They came out really, really good. So the tip of the week is to obviously scout and take those scouting shots, but put the time in when you're doing your scouting shots, thinking about your composition, think about those angles, think about f-stop, because you may be pleasantly surprised with what you come away with, and have wonderful images, irrespective of the light. Just because it's not golden hour does not mean you cannot make a good landscape shot. And it can be useful for anything from stock photos to your own website, to your blog, to something you want to hang on your wall. So take that extra time when you're doing your scouting shots. So that does it for this week's In the Field. Hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks again for joining me. If you've got questions, please send them in. I'm due for another question and answer show, so get your questions in and your question might be answered on the air. Even if it's not, I promise to get a response back to you. I'm pretty good about turning around emails through my website in a day or two. You can also leave comments on the video and other social media outlets. Hit me up. I'm in a variety of spots. All my links are on the website. So until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.